This is Mornings on the Mall with Brian and Larry, joining us right now, as he does every week at this time when we're lucky. Larry Kudlow, host of the Kudlow Report on CNBC, and of course the Kudlow Show on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m. Larry Kudlow, thanks for joining us this morning. It looks like everyone's talking about the debt limit now instead of the government shutdown as it relates to Obamacare. What are the dangers of the debt limit issue?
Well, what are the dangers?
Just in terms of if the government shutdown continues and we hit that debt ceiling mark.
Well, you know, in the initial stages, very little. I mean, I'm reading some very pessimistic things in the paper this morning, but the reality is we will continue to pay the interest on our debt, and we'll continue to roll over issues that come due, and very little different is going to happen in the early going. I mean, if over a longer period of time we don't raise the debt limit.
Well, we keep hearing from some reports that if we hit this debt limit deadline that Secretary Lew has laid out, there's going to be an economic meltdown.
Yeah. I've never seen an administration throwing around that word default to the extent that these guys do. It's as though, for their own ends, their own political position, they're just trying to scare people, scare the markets. It's almost like they'd like to see stocks fall 500 or 600 or 700 points so they can get a clean debt bill. You know, that's really what it sounds to me. I wrote a column about this, and I was very disturbed. I've never seen a president sort of use the debt ceiling as a club to beat down markets and scare the heck out of people. And I think it's really bad. We have every month about $250 billion worth of debt, worth of revenues coming in. About $250 billion worth of revenues come into the Treasury Department from income tax payments. Now, that may vary from month to month, but I'm just giving you an average number. We have about $35 billion in interest expense. So you do the math. We have more than enough revenues to cover the payoff of the interest expense. More than enough. And, in fact, you've had a couple of House Member Tom McClintock from California and Senate member from Pennsylvania, Pat Toomey. And I've interviewed them both, and they both put bills up to full faith and credit to codify this, that, in fact, the first order of business will be to keep the debt whole and to pay off the debt first. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, I think in the long run, you've got to solve this problem. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
In the short run, we have more than enough reserves coming in, you know, from normal operations of the economy to finance this. And so it bugs me. As I said, I wrote a column about this. It's almost unpatriotic for Obama to run around town and say markets are going to crash and the economy is going to crash if you don't do what I want you to do. And I still believe he is going to have to come to the table and negotiate a deal which does something to slow down the volume of debt, which is to say the rate of spending over revenues in the long run. He's going to have to do that.
Well, let's just be very clear about this. I mean, you make a very good point, and one that needs to be made, you know, more prominently, is that, you know, just this magic date does not mean automatic default.
Right.
That you got the money coming in, and you then have to make some tough decisions about how you spend that money. But there is more than enough money to pay off the debt payments that we have. So it's absolutely untrue to say that we're going to default on October 17th, right, which what you hear from this administration every time they open their mouths.
I mean, it's the kind of thing where, in their own political self-interest, they are trying to scare or bash the financial markets, which over time, I guess, will have a deleterious effect. Although, to be honest with you, you look at the U.S. Treasury bond market, you don't see any adverse consequences yet. The stock market has slipped a little bit, maybe a couple of percentage points, but that's a normal correction. Worried about profits, which are coming up soon. Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. It borders on unpatriotic, if you ask me. I've never seen prior presidents, George W. Bush. Hell, I'll go all the way back. I don't recall Jimmy Carter ever doing this. Reagan never did this. Clinton never did this. We've always had debt ceiling arguments in this country because it's a question of spending priorities, and that's fine. That's what a democracy is all about. But to say, if you don't do it my my way or you go the highway. And to say that it's going to cause a financial and economic collapse, which is what Obama's saying, and Jack Lew, his political operative at the Treasury, it's just utter nonsense. Utter nonsense.
Really quickly, Larry Kudlow, it's been a week since Obamacare rolled out on the websites, and they've been having some awful technical problems. In the private sector, would they have gotten away with this?
Well, look, maybe not. All right, Apple's had its problems. Everybody has technical problems. Everybody has technical issues. I don't want to excuse it because they've had a year or more to do this, but I still think that the problems here are the problems, and that is the individual mandate is a problem. The lack of verification is a problem. I don't know how you're going to run this operation. The state insurance exchanges are not ready to go. So you've already postponed the business mandate. I was talking to John Engler, interviewed him last night, because the big businesses got a year off on this. I don't see why the individual doesn't get a year off on it.
Yeah, a lot of us don't, and maybe that's the compromise they're finally going to reach. Larry Kudlow, always good to have you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks for joining us.